Are you ready to meet the powerful African civilizations that history erased? Let's dive in. In the heart of West Africa, on the edge of the Sahara, there stood one of history's most misunderstood intellectual powerhouses, Timbuktu. This is an ancient Mali city located about 12 miles north of the Niger River. By the 14th century, Timbuktu had become the crown jewel of the Mali Empire. This city housed over 25,000 students and a library of hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, with most written in Arabic. These manuscripts were so enriched that they covered mathematics, medicine, astronomy, law, and philosophy. What's more, these documents weren't myths or folk stories. They were peer-reviewed academic works centuries ahead of their time. Some texts even reveal mathematical models that align with heliocentric theory long before Copernicus. So why don't we hear about it? The reason will amaze you. Did you know that for centuries Western academia dismissed Timbuktu as a mythical city? Despite sufficient proof that the city was real, they still found a way to underplay their significance. Imagine a popular town that is deeply advanced being regarded as non-existent. How crazy is that? That's how far they went to abolish the fact that Africa can produce good. And when the manuscripts were finally rediscovered in modern times, the worst elimination plan happened. The manuscripts were quietly archived, with many still untranslated to this day. It was almost like someone didn't want the world to know that Africa once housed its own Ivy League. But the amazing Timbuktu is not the only wonder that the Mali Empire produced. High in the cliffs of Mali, there lives the Dogon tribe. They were an ancient people with a cosmic secret. Long before telescopes, the Dogon possessed superior astronomical knowledge, leading them to uncover the Sirius mystery. What is this Sirius mystery? This is the special understanding of the Sirius star and its companion Sirius B. They described Sirius B to bits. This is a white dwarf star, completely invisible to the naked eye. The Dogon people knew its orbit period was 50 years, its companion status to Sirius A, and its incredibly dense mass. And they accomplished this feat years before Western science could locate the star. How? French anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germaine Dieterlen published this stunning revelation in the 1950s after years of fieldwork. The Dogon not only knew about Sirius B, but also claimed their ancestors were visited by beings called Nommo. They described the Nommo amphibious sky teachers who came from the Sirius star system. Because of this claim, arguments began to rise surrounding the origin of their sacred knowledge. Many skeptics say the Dogon may have acquired this knowledge from modern sources, but Griaule's interviews were conducted in the 1930s, well before Sirius B was publicly confirmed by Western astronomy. So either the Dogon guessed correctly, or they were taught by their ancestors, the Nommo. In the 25th dynasty, a powerful African kingdom ruled over Egypt and controlled most world's power. We are talking about ancient Nubia. From the south of Egypt, in what is now Sudan, rose one of Africa's most strategic and underestimated empires, Nubia. At its peak, Nubia ruled not only its own territory but also conquered and governed Egypt during the 25th dynasty. They exercised so much authority that they were branded as the Black Pharaohs. They were also Kushite kings, including Piye, Taharka, and Shabaka. And they didn't just adopt Egyptian traditions, they revived and redefined them. For example, Taharka's reign was marked by expansive temple building, military campaigns, and diplomatic relations with other global powers of the time. He's even referenced in the Bible as a pharaoh who opposed Assyria. And yet, he is rarely mentioned in modern education. Why is that? It's because acknowledging that Egypt's rulers were once black Africans from Nubia would overturn everything. Such knowledge roaming about reshapes everything we assumed about power, legacy, and African identity in the ancient world, and nobody wants that. As opposed to what we have been made to believe, Nubian religion was not a copy of Egypt's. Instead, it could be seen as its twin flame. For instance, they worshipped similar gods like Amun, Isis, and Osiris, but they did not worship like the Egyptians. Instead, they gave them local nuance. Their temples were aligned with astronomical markers, and the Nubians maintained a female-dominated priesthood. Queen mothers, called kandakes, held immense political and spiritual authority. It gets more fascinating. In places like Jebel Barkal, spiritual science and architecture were merged into one. Their sacred mountain shrines were carved and aligned with the Nile's rhythms and star movements. Some inscriptions explain concepts of soul energy, rebirth, and interdimensional balance in depth. These are all ideas that sound remarkably modern. The Nubian understanding of the afterlife wasn't ordinary. It was both spiritual and systematic, like they were living years ahead of their time. So, who really influenced who? Did Egypt civilize Nubia, or did Nubia awaken Egypt? In northern Ethiopia, there once lived a kingdom known as the Aksum. Ruled by the ancient Aksumite Empire, the Aksum kingdom was so vast that it minted its own coins, traded with Rome, and may have held the Ark of the Covenant. Can you believe that? Aksum rose around the 1st century CE and flourished for nearly 1,000 years. During its reign, this empire maintained trade links with India, Persia, and even China. It controlled the Red Sea corridor, which was a vital economic channel. And all this was long before European powers took notice. But even above its abundant gold, the Aksum was known for something more remarkable: its spiritual prowess. Ancient Ethiopian tradition says that Aksum's rulers were direct descendants of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. This statement was found in the Kebra Nagast. This is a 14th century Ethiopian manuscript that explains how the Ark of the Covenant traveled from Israel to Ethiopia through the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. According to the Kebra Nagast, the Ark of the Covenant was brought to Ethiopia and remains hidden in Aksum to this day. Yes, that Ark. Is it a myth? Maybe. But the priests guarding the Ark in Aksum still refuse to let anyone see it to this day. There is news that mainstream media tries hard to hide. Long before Rome embraced Christianity, Aksum had already converted. This doesn't match what we have been taught. Under King Ezana in the 4th century CE, Aksum became one of the first officially Christian empires in the world. Not just in Africa, no, in the world. The Aksum built churches carved straight from solid rock. They wrote theology in Ge'ez, which was their native tongue. And more importantly, they preserved some of the oldest canonical Christian texts outside of Israel. But here is the thing. Aksum's brand of Christianity wasn't Roman. It was deeply African, fused with ancient Judaic traditions and local cosmology. With such a unique culture, why is this legacy so unknown? Perhaps it's because history painted Africa as a receiver of Christianity, but never a source. Too bad. Aksum turns that myth on its head. One of Aksum's greatest mysteries lies in Lalibela. This is a medieval city where 11 monolithic churches were carved downward from solid bedrock. They were sculpted from the earth with no scaffolding or modern tools. But here's the twist. Some researchers claim the churches release mysterious frequencies known to alter states of consciousness. This implies something strange. The churches were no ordinary places of worship. They held something more. But still, the textbooks say nothing. Maybe because once you admit Africa had its own sacred science, you start to wonder what else got buried.